welcome back to another exciting edition of Spilling the Tea in Studio D. So this year we're kind of kicking the thing off with getting to know our staff a little bit around here on the Dawson campus complex. I never know how to say that, so campus sounds right. Yeah, that's school-ish, right?
Right.
So I've been telling folks last couple of podcasts we're taking auditions for a new co-host. Candace is terrible, so we're going to try to maybe have folks vote. So again, in the comments section, go ahead and give me a comment and vote on who we need to slide in there. No pressure though on you, because it's like I've told the other candidates, you won't be last with Candace in the mix. You know what I'm saying? You won't be dead last anyway. That's for sure.
You know she's coming back for you, don't you?
That's all right. Hey.
I bet Deidre's got it going on.
Exactly. There's nothing at all that Candace can bring to the table that I can't chop up. So, I ain't worried about that. So pleasure to have this morning Rose Blair and Deidre Middleton. Deidre Middleton, longtime co-op employee. How long have you been in the co-op now?
30 years.
Man, 30 years. Wow. So you was co-oping when co-oping wasn't cool.
Well, I guess you can say that, but it's, the co-op, it goes back a long way.
Yeah, so what was your first year here?
My first year was, you talking about the first year?
Yeah, at the co-op. What year was that?
What's it?
84, 5, something like that?
I think it was 80, was it 89?
Oh, okay.
Something
Gotcha.
like that.
Yeah.
Somewhere like that.
Too long.
Too long. It was Howard A. Dawson.
So you started out then at the little house on Henderson's campus.
Yes, we did.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
we were all in the little house. We were on one end of the block, and then they had the media center on the other end of the block.
Wow. So were you the original director? Rick, right?
Yes. Well,
Right.
the director that hired me was
Oh, I always forget about
Mr. Oh God, he's gonna kill me. James Ford.
yeah,
Dr. Ford.
Yes, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Dr. Ford
yeah.
hired me.
Okay, yeah. Man, that has been a minute.
It has been a minute.
Yeah,
It has
okay.
been.
And then, of course, Rose, you are the new ESOL. Is that right? I always want to say ESL, but I forget about the O because that's for other languages, right?
Right, yes.
So I just got to get this off the table. Like, are your parents like big Golden Girls fans with the Rose Blair? You know what I'm saying?
I don't know. And
Yeah.
Rose is actually my middle name,
Oh.
which
So what's the first
it's
name?
a curse to go by your middle name.
Right.
Can I just say it makes everything in your life
So
look
so what
complicated.
would be your first name? Cause that,
Oh, wow. We're really going there.
yeah, because that'll solve the Golden Girls mystery right away. So,
It's Victoria.
Victoria. So
Victoria.
so I think you're safe. There was no Victoria that I'm aware of,
Yeah,
or Golden
yeah,
Girls.
yeah,
No. So
yeah.
okay.
That's
all right.
pretty.
Yeah, it is.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Well, hey, there's nothing to be ashamed of, Victoria. I mean, I'm a twin, and I had to get a rhyming middle name, Deborah K. Darren Ray. So
there you
hey,
go.
I totally get it. Which though it paid off when I did radio. I just went with Darren Ray. And so that worked out.
That's a good radio name.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
Beckwith is a mouthful. And, so anyway, so if you will, tell us, give us a little background on you. Tell us about yourself, and what led you, a little bit about the path that led you to where you are now.
Sure. Well, originally I am from Glenwood, Arkansas.
Yep.
Born and raised. Graduated from Center Point High
Yep.
School in 2013.
Which is actually Roseboro, right?
Yes. It's kind of between Glenwood and Amity.
Right. Yeah.
Yes, big city. And so then after that, I came to Henderson and got my bachelor's in elementary education.
Okay.
Graduated in 2017 from Henderson.
Right.
And I started teaching at Bryant.
Yep.
I taught for 4 years as a first grade teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And then while I was teaching first grade, I came back to Henderson and Dawson and did the ESOL Institute.
Okay. Okay. Wow.
So I did that in the summer of 2019. So completed all of that, got my ESOL endorsement.
Right.
Then I taught ESOL for 2 years. I was an ESOL facilitator
Right.
in Bryant, and now I'm here.
Okay.
So, you asked kind of how I got into
Right.
this field, and it just kind of happened.
Right.
So when I was a teenager, I started going to a Hispanic church
Okay.
and was very, very involved, and was just kind of immersed in the Hispanic culture.
Sure.
Learned to speak Spanish, and
Yeah.
just really fell in love with
Yeah.
the cultural aspect of all of that. And so I it just kind of lit a fire in me for I always wanted to be a teacher. I feel like
Right.
a lot of people that
Sure.
are teachers,
Oh,
that
yeah.
that's their
Right.
what they've always wanted to do. But that really lit the fire in me to work with students of other cultures and other languages, and so that's really where my interest sparked from. And
Right. So,
so
any other educators in your family?
no,
Okay,
I was
yeah.
actually one of the first people in my family to graduate college. and-
Okay. Well, good for you. Yeah.
That's good.
Well, and I think sometimes, the general public probably forgets the difficulties of some of these kids that come to a public school, maybe from another country, and not knowing the language and having to be taught the language on top of the curriculum. That's pretty tough.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
for sure.
So how do you deal with a kid like that? Let's just say they've been identified, they bring them. So what's next?
Well, once they've been identified and we place them in services, schools can kind of choose what kind of services they will provide based
Right.
on, student need.
Sure.
And so students that have a lot of need, they might be pulled out of class for a
Right.
little bit of time to receive designated explicit English language development instruction. And so that sometimes it gets confused that ESOL services are kind of like a supplement to academics or to content, but it's really its own ball game in a way.
Right.
It's literally just a designated time to focus on language and build those English language skills. Some schools do that and have that designated pull-out times. Other schools embed their language
Right.
instruction, and so it's funny because it's just very differentiated based on each kid's needs.
Sure.
So-
And honestly, that's the way it should be, I think, in most cases.
right. Yeah, with all kids. Yeah.
So, but what I would say, as teachers, we all have had that aha moment when a kid gets it. But I would especially think when you're dealing with a kid, again, from another country that doesn't know the language, but when they pick it up, that's a huge aha moment.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, it feels really good.
So, biggest difference from what you did in the classroom at Bryant to what you're doing now?
It's very different. Just being out of the school setting is very. I feel like school is just like go 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 go, and you
Right.
have every day
Right.
planned out to the minute, and I really love this role because every day is kind of different.
Right.
And I love that my role is a very supportive role. I really support ESOL coordinators
Right.
with implementing their program, and so it's nice to be able to, pick up the phone and help people
Yeah.
however they need.
Yeah.
I really am enjoying that.
Yeah. Well, and I don't disagree with you. I think, two things I love about the co-op. I think first and foremost, I feel like we get to reach more kids than you would in a district. Second of all, is what you said is the never the same thing 2 days in a row.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got to have that, even though it occurred, even in all the various positions I've held in public school, like you're saying, it's different, but sometimes the swing is much larger, or some days it may be a little bit smaller, but at least it's still different. So being here 30 years, what would you say? I mean, co-op wise.
Well, and just like you said, I remember Becky used to tell us, if you're doing the same thing every day, something's not right.
That's right. Yeah,
Because-
absolutely. Yeah.
Because, you're going to come in and there's going to be something that's going to be different.
Yeah.
for you. So
Yeah, the first thing on my to-do list every morning is to get rid of my list, because I know I'm not going to get to it, right?
Yeah.
So
Just
yeah, exactly. That's right. That's right. So, what guy? I mean, I know you gave your background with the Hispanic church, that kind of thing. But as far as the teaching side, was that something you think you've always wanted to do?
Yeah, pretty much. I really just never saw myself doing anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Typical like little girl, setting up my
Yeah.
baby dolls, and
Yeah.
I even had like not a full size, but I had a
Right.
pretty big like whiteboard in my room,
Oh, yeah?
and was all
Yeah.
about getting the markers
Yeah.
and stuff like
So
that.
you went hardcore early.
Oh yeah, like
Yeah.
when teachers would be getting rid of
Oh, yeah.
textbooks or whatever,
Yeah.
I'd be like, oh,
Yeah.
I want them, and
Yeah.
I remember having spelling books and
Yeah.
all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff.
that's neat.
So going to Centerpoint, I mean, it's fairly, it's I'd say a mid-sized school now, but I mean, what would you say how was that making the transition from there to Bryant, which is one of the largest districts probably in the state?
Very, very different.
Yeah.
Very different. Yeah, I went to school K-12 with pretty much the same group of
Sure,
kids
yeah.
and that kind of thing. So it's kind of a different mindset in the
Right.
school district.
Yeah.
But I think Bryant does a good job of unifying their school
Yeah.
district and stuff. But it was an adjustment for sure.
Yeah, I can remember the first year that I went to Lakeside. I mean, the only experience I'd had going to school and both my first teaching and coaching job was in a small school. And I get over there, but what I found out really, I was in the middle school first, but each school was kind of its own little district, if you will, and so once I wrapped my head around that, and because my first thought was, man, this is going to be intimidating. I never been around, but it worked out fine. I mean, at the end of the day, kids are kids, teachers are going to teach, and school is school.
Absolutely.
So once I figured that out, I was good to go. So how many years total now do you have?
This is starting year 7.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So
Yeah.
not super long.
Well, but yeah. So talk a little bit about the ESOL Institute and how it benefited you.
Oh, wow. I mean, I feel like it really was kind of the spark that led me into what I really feel like I was meant to do.
Right.
Overall, I think just besides the benefit of understanding how to work with English learners, I think
Right.
it just made me a better teacher overall.
Yeah.
I was able to learn a lot of strategies to engage students, a lot of just things that are good for English learners, but
Right.
really and we say that a lot.
Right.
Things that are good for English learners are good for all students.
Oh, absolutely,
And so,
and vice versa.
for
Yeah.
sure, yeah. So it was a huge blessing to me to be able to go through that and
So ESOL, what help me with those letters again.
yeah. So ESOL stands for English for Speakers of Other Languages.
Right.
We used to use the term ESL, which was English as a second language, but now we have a lot of students that come in that English is not their second language. It's
Right.
maybe their third or their
Right.
fourth language,
Yeah.
which is amazing.
Yeah.
So it's just a more inclusive term, I guess.
Yeah, and so with the ESOL Institute, it's a pretty intense, I guess you would say, couple of weeks in the summer, right?
Uh-huh.
And then after that, are there follow-up classes?
Yes. So it starts. I think it used to be 2 weeks. I think when I went through it, it was 1 week.
Gotcha.
I could be wrong on that.
Yeah.
But and then there was kind of each quarter we would meet on a Saturday.
Right.
And so you get 12 hours of graduate credit for going through the institute, and so each quarter you have one project that you focus on that kind of covers the credit for one, because you kind of cover 4 classes in
Right.
a way, and so there's Lord, I probably can't remember all of them, but there's a culture piece and there's a language acquisition piece and things like that.
But it's pretty intense, right?
Yeah, it is. And that first week, you've got a lot of different people coming in, a lot of information, and then after that, it's kind of a more independent study
Yeah,
a little
right.
bit.
Yeah. Well, we had a first here at Dawson and for ESOL this summer. We had a wedding actually occur.
I heard about that.
Yeah, yeah.
That is a bit. Listen, Jana Catlett, you
Oh,
never
yeah.
know what she's gonna do.
The great thing about it was, I mean, they were talking about going to the courthouse, and they're like, "Hey, let's do it here," and they're like, "Well, we don't have a minister," and this guy goes, "I got you covered." He went online, got ordained, and so they're in front of the big, beautiful Dawson butterfly backdrop. They got married, so that's pretty good.
That
Yeah.
is just
Yeah.
they will. That's just so memorable.
Yeah, yeah. So in the short 7 years you've been in this profession, what are some of the changes you feel like you've seen?
Probably the biggest change that happened pretty soon after I started was the RISE
Yep.
stuff, the science of reading, which
Right.
really, really changed me as a teacher. I think I went through RISE training after my first year of
Oh, wow.
teaching.
Okay.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I know what to do now.
Yeah, exactly.
I felt like I was kind of flying by the seat of my pants a little bit that first year's degree. But it gave me such a good understanding of how to teach kids how to
Right.
read.
Right.
That really changed.
Well,
changed
and I
things
guess
for
even
me.
and I could see going through that too. Obviously, there's some cross connection with that and what you're doing with ESOL kids, right?
Yes, absolutely. Well, there's a lot of things you have to take into
Right.
consideration.
Sure.
Especially like one of the big things is just language transfer. Certain languages have sounds that other languages don't have, and
Right.
so a lot of times when you're looking at that phonemic awareness, that phonological awareness,
Right.
there's like Spanish, for example, each vowel only has one sound. And
Right.
in English, oh my gosh, I don't know how many vowel sounds we have,
Right.
too many.
Right.
And so that's something that those English learners really struggle with. So it's important
Sure.
for teachers to have an awareness of
Right.
what those kids are coming to them with and what they need to kind of add to their toolbox.
Yeah, I
in a way.
mean, I could certainly see that and being frustrating. So it's, and being patient. I mean, patience is a big piece of that.
For sure,
Yeah.
yeah. And that is the thing is English learners, they are kind of on their own timeline a little bit.
Right.
And they will, with enough intervention and enough support, will be able to catch up to their non-English learner peers, but they
Yeah.
do need extra support
Right.
in that way.
So I guess you were a fairly young teacher then when COVID hit, right?
Yes, I guess
So-
that was my third year. of
So
teaching.
how'd you do with the online instruction?
Um,
You were in first grade teacher.
I was,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
You
Well,
can
I-
imagine it was interesting.
Well, yeah, I'll say this honestly. I saw lots of great teachers doing great things, but even the best of the best, it still looked like herding cats because I mean those kids' hands were like this the entire
Yes,
time, and
I
they want to
mean-
go to the bathroom. I'm hungry, just nonstop.
Right. I didn't have to do the full day
Oh, okay.
virtual when we
Gotcha.
came back after that
Yeah.
spring.
Right.
I was still in the actual classroom, but
Yeah.
that spring we kind of had to
Oh, yeah.
scramble
Yeah.
and figure things out, and
Yeah.
it was really tough.
Well, but I would say the interesting part there though, it really pushed all of us, to do things we well first of all didn't know would exist, but think we were capable of.
Absolutely. Yeah,
So-
we really just kind of had to pull together, and everybody
Right.
had to do their part and make things happen.
All right. So let me ask you this. I'll ask both of y'all this. I asked this earlier to some folks. So best piece of advice, that you've gotten and given
Oh my goodness.
that you could give at this point.
Best piece of advice. You got something?
We're both looking at each other.
Oh. Now somebody somewhere along the way has had to tell you something and it sunk in. You're like, yeah, there's something to that, right?
Something that I'm sure I've heard somewhere along the way is, especially with new teachers, is just to give yourself some grace.
Right.
You're not gonna do better till you know better, and you can only do the best with what you know. And being a new teacher is really hard. That's kind of one of my soapboxes I can get on, and I think new teachers need a lot of support.
100%.
And so just having grace with yourself and be willing to learn, be willing to change if things aren't going well, and
that's kind of a twofer. That's both good advice you got and given, right?
I guess so.
Yeah.
There you go. Boom. Talked it out.
Yeah. Top that, would you?
Yeah. Let's see about that. No. Well, working at Dawson Co-op when I came here, I think it was, it was Sharon Adams.
Mm-hmm.
I was working for her. And I had typed up a report, and I had all kind of errors in there. And I was like, oh, my God, I'm going to be horrible at this. And she says, wait a minute. She said, you've always got to, like you said, give yourself time. Everybody's going to make a mistake. You learn from your mistakes, and you go on with it.
Right, yeah. Well, and that's, I think sometimes it gets lost in a lot of folks. They're so afraid that they are going to make a mistake or they are going to fail, therefore they don't try or whatever. And heck, I've always been just the opposite. I'll dive right in. I'll be the first guy to fail. I don't care. I mean, I probably learned as much by failing at things as I have, not. And so I always think, especially new teachers, I mean, I think you're right, too. The most important thing they do need is support, for sure. And that comes from, 28 years ago when I first started, getting handed 2 textbooks in a sack and saying, hey, go forth and teach. That's pretty much it.
Okay.
And so, back then, honestly, first year or two, I mean, they did what they called evaluations, walk in and walk out, but I didn't really know what that was supposed to look like, really until, later on in my career when I became an administrator and got the proper training, like you're saying. That made all the difference in the world. But, support. And the grace piece is huge too. I mean, I say this a lot, but you can't. I mean, take your job super seriously, but you can't take yourself too serious because, if you let it, that day-to-day grind will get you. And I was talking to somebody earlier in the week, and they were reminiscing on their early teaching, and they said, as I look back on it, I always thought, I knew this from the start of school till Labor Day weekend was going to be a grind. It was going to be push, going to be chaotic, going to be hectic. But if I felt like if and when I got to that point, we were good. So, and I thought, looking back on it, there's a lot of truth in that, right? So.
Well, and something else that just kind of came to mind that kind of goes along with what you're saying. When I started this job, and we talked about Jana a little bit.
Right.
So Jana was in my place before, and we kind of switched spots a little bit. She went to Bryant, and I came here. And she wrote me out a little note and left it here on my desk for me to come to. And something that she wrote, and I have thought back to several times, is don't be afraid to ask questions. And when you forget, ask again and ask again and ask again. And don't feel like you're dumb or whatever. So
well, that's great advice.
That's something I've tried to hold on to because I have had to ask a lot of questions jumping into this new role.
Hey, so have I, and guess what? I still do every day. They're like, how about you wite something down? I'm like, no. Ain't nobody doing that, or I ain't got time for that. Come on now. So let's what kind of music? I always like to see what everybody's playlist is.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, music's one of those things I think that is an attitude changer, can be.
Yeah.
Get all up in your feels one way or the other. So
absolutely. Well, I love music. I'm a huge music person. Everybody says, "Oh, I listen to everything," but I really feel like I do.
Yeah.
One of my favorites, Harry Styles. Oh, I love Harry Styles. I like pop. I like country. That new Zach Bryan album that just came out.
Zach Bryan,
I've been listening to that. I listen to some, rap, rock, all kinds of stuff. Harry Styles is my man.
Well, but, I mean, that's how I am now. I'll listen to a little bit of Harry, not a lot, but I do listen to pretty much everything too. When I worked in radio, it was country, and so that's still probably got a sweet spot in my heart there. Just because that entire industry, those folks are, I mean, they're just people,
Right.
So, and so that's where I probably listen to the majority of it. So it swings all over. What about you down there, little Remy?
R&B.
R&B. Yeah, I got you. Yeah. Anybody in particular?
I know he was going to ask that.
Yeah. She got to go to the phone.
Look, let me look at my phone
Yeah.
here now.
Well, let's
Playlist.
let's look at that since you got it there. What was the last song you played? That will tell that will tell what you are.
R&B. Who's one of my favorite people? I'm old school.
Like how old school?
Like some Luther.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I thought about this the other day. You ain't even gonna know who this is. But that Al Jarreau came on, because I'll have Siri pick my music most days, and I'm like, man, I forgot about that cat. He didn't have too many songs, but the 2 or 3 he had were really good. So
I'll have to look him up.
yeah, you will. Yeah. Hey, you'll be pleasantly surprised probably. So what about this one? If you weren't teaching or in education, what do you think you'd be doing?
I don't know. Probably something related to people. I'm a really
Right.
big people person. I
Right.
like making
Yeah.
connections with
Oh,
people. Maybe
absolutely.
something in, I don't know, human resources
Yeah.
or public relations,
Gotcha.
something
Yeah.
like that.
Gotcha.
When I was in college, I worked at a bank. I was a bank
Oh yeah.
teller.
Yeah.
And if I could have made a living being
Yeah.
a bank teller,
Oh, yeah.
I would have done. I
Yeah.
loved it because
Yeah.
I got to interact with people all day long. And it was in Glenwood, so it was my
So,
hometown, so I
yeah.
knew half the people walking in.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I just got to chit chat with people all day
Right.
long and
Well, and
help them out in that way.
yeah.
So.
Well, but I mean, next to family, money's the next important thing.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
and people take
So,
it seriously.
Yeah, and in
Yes,
some
they should.
and in some instances, I think money is their family. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
So what about you? If you weren't doing what we're doing here,
It's funny for her to say that because when I was in college, I worked as a bank teller.
oh, did you really?
I worked
Yeah.
down here at Regions when it was Citizens Bank.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I worked in that, and I'm like you. I like to be around people. I don't think like when the COVID hit and we had to be at home or whatever. I don't. That's not for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not.
Yeah.
No.
Well, and radio is kind of the best of both worlds. I mean, you have that time that you're in the booth by yourself, but you're still conversating with lots of folks. But then
Sure.
the flip side of that, when you make those public appearances and get to see people, that's again, and that's a lot of the skills that I learned in radio. Have proven to help me immensely in what I'm doing. So. But yeah, I think anything with the public, I'm in for the most part.
Enjoy it.
So yeah. Well, okay. Any last parting thoughts before we get out of here?
Oh. I don't know. I feel put on the spot.
I really respect you guys because trying to with us being in the preschool program and we get those babies that don't speak good English, and when you guys come in and help us out or whatever, we appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of times too, and I know, like with the parents too, a lot of times it's working with them to understand what you're doing with that child. So
For sure.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
and I know, that again, like as I said earlier, that is their most precious thing is their family, and they want to be able to trust. But I can imagine it would be difficult at times not knowing the language.
Yeah, if you kind of flip the situation and if you put yourself in their
Oh,
shoes,
yeah.
that would be
It's
kind
hard.
of terrifying to
Oh.
send your kid off
For
somewhere
sure.
where you can't even communicate with the people that
Exactly.
that you're
Right.
entrusting them
Yeah,
with.
that's true.
So
That's true.
I think those families that I serve, I really admire them a lot.
Right.
And
Well, it goes back to the people skills. If you can make them feel comfortable, and again, as we all know, education's all about relationships. What life is. Who am I kidding? But yeah, so that's one way to do it. Well, I appreciate you coming in today, and we're proud to have you here on the Dawson campus. And I mean, I know it sounds like you're going to do great things. And if you have a lot of questions, keep asking them. If I don't know, which I probably won't, I'll be right up front. I'll ask Candace or Deidre or somebody. We'll get it figured out. So, all right.
Thank you.
Well, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of Spilling the Tea in Studio D. So until next time.